Ready for the 11 o'clock presentation. You know what? We got one of our vendors from the world of wellness, and a recently new vendor, been with us now about a year, and Matt from Healthy Origins. Now they're a local company right here in Pittsburgh, so get ready. This is going to give you some great information on two of the most powerful, actually three of the most powerful antioxidants that we have on the shelf today. And that is resveratrol, one of my all-time favorites. And of course, resveratrol is that nutrient that activates the longevity gene. Pycnogenol up next, and then of course astaxanthin. Wow, this one, some experts say it is thousands of times more powerful than vitamin C and vitamin E as an antioxidant. So, Matt, Healthy Origins, let's bring it up. Well, we're very familiar with branded, research, trademarked ingredients, and we love to see that in formulations that we bring in, and that's one of the things that stands out. Um, you talked about quality. That's one of the, I guess, the guidelines are, so when people say quality, everybody says it, right? But how do you back it up? Well, when
Yeah.
you have branded ingredients, that's one way of really backing it up.
Right.
And I like that you have that. I mean, the first one I'd love to talk about is your astaxanthin.
Sure.
It has the branded Asta Pure, okay, branded research form of astaxanthin. And astaxanthin in general, we know, an amazing antioxidant, very powerful antioxidant, much more powerful than vitamin C, vitamin E, things like that. We know it has a great effect on eye health. So many, I mean, it's just a wide range, and I'd like you to expand on that a little bit. But what I really liked was the fact that it's a 12 milligram dose. And you and I had talked earlier, and you don't really see that. The standard dose for the longest time with astaxanthin has been 4 milligrams.
Mhm.
So why did you go to a 12 milligram, and not just a 12 milligram, but a 12 milligram branded ingredient for your astaxanthin?
Sure, and that's a great question. So we have both a 4 milligram and a 12 milligram. The 12 milligram has really gained a lot of momentum in terms of the popularity. I think because with supplements, and especially fat soluble supplements like astaxanthin is, a lot of people don't account for a loading phase. So the data and the information that we had received from our raw material supplier, and they're an Israeli company, and we'll go into some detail onto how they produce the astaxanthin and why I feel it's superior to the others in the market. But the data that we had received said that most people, when starting, at least for the first 3 to 4 months, should be taking a higher dose of astaxanthin, which is 12 milligrams, which is kind of the particular strength that seemingly just caught on, because they said, well, take triple the amount of the what they call the maintenance dose, which is the 4 milligrams daily. So the 12 milligrams became very, very popular very quickly because a lot of people, and as you know, with supplements, if you're taking something for joint health or heart health, especially for something that, is going to, you want to have an impact on your body in a relatively short amount of time, or as short as possible. People were taking 4 milligrams or below. I've seen some supplements in the 2 milligram range, and not, I guess, either not waiting long enough to receive the results, or just not kind of sticking with it. And what they found was that if you take the 12 milligrams daily, which, you can take it 12 milligrams daily safely, of course, but the 12 milligrams, especially if you've never taken an astaxanthin product before, is vital because it builds up that level of astaxanthin in your body. Now, after 3, 4, 5 months, whatever the individual sees fit, they can taper off to 4 milligrams a day to just kind of, as I'd stated, to maintain that level of astaxanthin in their body. But
let me ask you this then.
Mm-hmm.
Would they also be able then to just use a 12 milligram every 3 or 4 days?
Yes.
And not do it on a daily basis, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay.
So yeah, if you use the 12 milligram, and I think a lot of people, the feedback I've received, which has been limited, of course, from what they're taking on a dosing guideline, but what a lot of people were doing, just because it's easier as well, it eliminates pill fatigue, is taking the 12 milligrams once every other day or once every 3 days. Due to its fat solubility, it will remain in the blood. So the 12 milligram in particular has done better than the 4. I think especially with people just starting astaxanthin and getting it going, because they want to see results within a shorter amount of time, if at all possible.
So, yeah, I agree. Now, and I'll tell you, a good friend of mine,
Mhm.
Was the first one you probably know him, Dr. Dennis Courtney
Mhm.
was the first one to open my eyes to a 12 milligram dose a few
Yeah,
years back, and yeah, so he knew about it then, and that didn't surprise me. But he does a lot of work with vision and eyes, and so that it all worked into place. But it goes so far beyond eye health, doesn't it, astaxanthin? I first heard about the 12 milligrams dosage from a good friend of mine, Dr. Dennis Courtney, a few years back, who has done, he's doing a lot of work with vision health these
sure.
days in the last couple of years. But astaxanthin in and of itself is not just for eye health either, right? I mean, what are we looking at here? Why should everybody be taking astaxanthin on a regular basis?
Sure. And a lot of people don't really know what astaxanthin is. I mean, besides for its
Right.
complicated name.
Yeah.
What astaxanthin is, it's a
Well, they definitely don't know how to spell it. That's
yeah,
for sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I've heard every different
Yeah.
way that astaxanthin can be butchered through spelling or over
Yeah.
the telephone.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, what astaxanthin actually is, it's a naturally occurring carotenoid that's found in different algae, different seaweeds, and of course, throughout a lot of streams, oceans. And what I always like to tell people, because then they can kind of relate to this, is that astaxanthin is actually what provides salmon's beautiful color, or shrimp's, their red glow, let's call it.
Yeah, so like
Because
when you get a lobster
Mhm,
and it's brown in nature, right?
mhm,
But when you cook it, the shell turns red.
that's right.
That's activating the astaxanthin, is it not?
It is, yes,
Yeah.
because it's actually stressing the astaxanthin.
Mm.
And it's similar in the way it's created from our raw material company, our partner, Alga Technologies in Israel. So it's the way that they make astaxanthin. They have around 300 miles of glass tubes. And we formerly got our astaxanthin, from a different company in Hawaii, which was again a very good product. But the issue I always had, with algae products was when you're growing them in an open pond setting outside, which is the most common way to grow different algae. And it's, of course, the most common for astaxanthin production. You leave that pond open to environmental contamination and hazards because birds are flying over it, different insects are flying into it. And it has to be thoroughly cleaned. And it adds an extra, I guess you'd say, step, that is, we find to be unnecessary. It just leaves that door for potential contamination much further open. The reason why we chose Alga Technologies is because of their hybrid system. They grow it in these glass tubes, which obviously is completely isolated from the atmosphere. So no environmental concerns or any type of impurities coming into the product. And it's the way that it is grown. It's reacted, of course, in these tubes, going back on the color. It starts as green, and when this algae is stressed, it turns to a bright red, a beautiful red color. So astaxanthin actually is used as a natural pigment too in certain different, food items, grocery items,
Okay.
etc. Now, not as common, of course, is beta carotene, which is also part of the carotenoid family. But it is a natural pigment, which, of course, as aforementioned, gives salmon its beautiful color and provides an antioxidant barrier, with these different animals and sea life that consume this algae.
Okay.
And that actually leads us on to the other mechanisms of action for the product. The astaxanthin itself obviously has been pretty well known for joints, joint lubrication, mobility, and of course, joint pain. But the additional benefits really weren't looked at as much, at first, but as the more and more clinical data and research papers started rolling out, they said, well, wait a minute, why aren't we looking at this? Forget just joint health. Why aren't we looking at eye health as well, immune system support, and probably 3 or 4 other categories because of its extremely potent antioxidant status.
I may ask you something.
Sure.
I've heard numbers astronomical, like 6,000 times more powerful than vitamin C as a free radical scavenger.
Mm-hmm.
Is that verifiable in any way?
It is to an extent. From a lot of the information I've read, and it contradicts it. So from the information I've read from several different sources, I've heard things such as up to 50 to 100 times more potent than vitamin E in terms of its antioxidant capacity. I do believe that because we sell vitamin E in our product line as well. And most people consume vitamin E. It is a preservative, it is an antioxidant, of course, but it's more or less for the hair, skin, and nail health benefits. The astaxanthin, on the other hand, being what it is and how it's consumed, by these animals, and a lot of people don't realize, for salmon, as an example, salmon are one of the strongest fish, on the entire planet. And reason being, they give it a lot of credit to what their diet is. So, it's one of the few fish, as you know, that can swim upstream against the current. Whereas most of the other fish that have a diet that's lower in astaxanthin and these beneficial carotenoids don't have the power and endurance that a salmon does have. So astaxanthin became a unique product that was really underneath the microscope in, I want to say, around 2010, 2011, not just for its benefits, of course, with joint health, but it had a lot of exposure into mass media on shows like the Dr. Oz show and others because of its capabilities, which are still being sought out and still being really truly researched.
Well, originally, years ago, the only place you could get astaxanthin was from krill oil.
Yeah.
Right. Now, these are tiny little crustaceans, right? So what sparked the jump to the algae-based one? Is it just a matter of being able to extract it? Or let's go to the source? Because obviously the krill are eating the algae, correct?
Right. Correct. Yeah. And with the krill, and that's a great question. With the krill, the problem is krill are not let's say a typical food item for the diets of humans. A lot of people, of course, eat fish, different variations of sea life, but krill are primarily a diet for whales and other large species especially because of krill's geolocation, which is in the southern hemisphere down towards Antarctica. So krill is used, of course, for krill oil, as well as, for food for marine animals, but is very seldomly used for food for humans because it's never really gained any popularity in that realm. And to my understanding, the taste of krill is not appetizing, but not only just to mention those, but with the krill do contain astaxanthin, but in a much smaller amount. So you would have to consume a very substantial amount of krill to get the 12 milligrams of purified astaxanthin that's in our product, which is what led all these production companies to look for an alternative source of krill, and finding it in the natural source, which is Haematococcus pluvialis microalgae. So with this microalgae, they were able to extract it, purify it, and make it into a dietary supplement in the strength that would actually provide human benefit.
Okay, excellent. So that is your astaxanthin, triple strength it's called. Asta Pure is the patented research trademark ingredient. We know that it benefits eye health. We know that it benefits skin health, heart health, muscle health. It goes on and on, folks. It's a vital antioxidant. And look, today more than ever, we need antioxidants in our diet and supplement protocol. And you really can't do better than astaxanthin. We've had it as a component of our 2020 eye formula for years, but here it is, standalone, finally, in a 12 milligram dose. And we have it here at the World of Wellness for you. Next, can we talk a little bit about your resveratrol?
Oh, certainly.
Because this is another favorite ingredient of mine. I've been talking about it forever. I've had, of course, you've probably read the longevity book written by Dr. Joseph Marone, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes.
And yeah, right. And they talk all about resveratrol with David Sinclair and how it activates the sirtuin 1 gene, the longevity gene in the body. I mean, let's face it, it does everything from, strengthening your heart and your brain to extending the life of the telomeres on your cells, on your DNA. So let's talk about resveratrol. And this is a great dose as well. And that's another reason I love it. 300 milligrams. Usually you see in it from anywhere from 50 to maybe 200. I have yet to see one like this. So tell us about this.
Certainly. Yeah, we've had resveratrol now for probably about 10 years or so. But recently we switched our source, and I'll go into that momentarily. Mm-hmm. But what resveratrol really is, in a nutshell, it's a very, very potent antioxidant. But a lot of people that read into resveratrol quickly find the association between resveratrol and red wine. So red wine, I don't know how many physicians and health networks have been saying for many, many years the benefits of having a glass or half a glass of red wine daily. Many people.
Half a glass? Come on, man. You're talking to an Italian here. There's no such thing as a half a glass of red wine.
That's true.
Come on.
And so a lot of people, when drinking red wine, and they actually do a quick Google search about what actually makes it beneficial for the body, quickly find out that it certainly isn't the alcohol. It's the resveratrol that is contained within the product. Resveratrol is a natural component of red grapes and green grapes, a little bit. Now, what a lot of people think when they consume a glass of red wine, of course, is that they're getting a overabundance of resveratrol. Everything's great, and that's all they need. When in reality, resveratrol, while it does come from grapes, it's in a very low potency, for grapes overall. So many grapes would have to be used to just make up one capsule of a typical resveratrol product that it would be staggering. Mm-hmm. So the most common way formerly that people obtained resveratrol was through a root called Japanese knotweed, which has been growing for centuries upon centuries in Japan mm-hmm. and also in Asia. The other Asian countries such as China, Thailand, but is very common in Japan. Mm-hmm. And the root itself, which is very earthy, contains high levels of resveratrol. And so it formerly was extracted from that point and then made into a product, usually at a 50% concentration. A matter of about 5 years or so ago, a company called Evolva came out. Well, I don't want to say came out of nowhere. They've actually been in the fermentation field for quite some time, but they really wanted to step up and get a better grasp on nutrients. So they had found a way to actually ferment resveratrol from yeast. which, as we all know, yeast fermentates, and the products fermented from yeast right now are quite plentiful. You can find, probably 10% of the items in most health food stores are a fermentate of some kind. So they said, well, why can't we get resveratrol in this manner? So they started doing some testing and some initial manufacturing batches, and found that you actually can get resveratrol from yeast, and the benefits of it are astronomical compared to the other way of achieving a resveratrol supplement through the Japanese knotweed. The main ones are as such. With Japanese knotweed, which is what we formerly had about 3 or 4 years ago before we switched over, is good, and it is, of course, a resveratrol source. But the problem with Japanese knotweed is two major things. Number one, there is a impurity. It's called imidin or imodin, whatever you want to pronounce it. And basically, it's an impurity through the Japanese knotweed that a lot of times is carried over into the resveratrol. It causes loose bowels and is frequently actually given out as a pure supplement over in Asia to help with chronic constipation. So being an impurity in the production, a lot of people can sometimes experience some GI upset, and nausea, things like that from resveratrol products that were higher in this particular impurity. In addition to that, there's another class of chemicals that people are, more so nowadays than ever, trying to keep away from, and that's PAHs. Which PAHs are an impurity a lot of times in herb and botanical production, and generally derived from the earth, but they have some correlation with causing some health issues. So when we first started looking for an alternative source for resveratrol, there really wasn't much out there. We stumbled upon Evolva's product. And we're really, I guess you could say, just kind of blown away with their material called Verite, which is a 98% pure resveratrol versus a 50%, which is the common, common strength of the Japanese knotweed. There is absolutely no PAH. There is absolutely no imidin, and the actual material itself also doesn't have a bad taste or odor, which is another problem with a lot of resveratrol, is that, when you're deriving something from a root, generally speaking, it's not going to be very, let's say, pleasant to the palate.
Right. As opposed to the grape, which is very pleasant to the palate. Yeah.
And a lot of people still think that you can get resveratrol from grapes in a supplement, and that just is not feasible from a price perspective. From a
I mean, if you don't mind, from my experience, unless the grape is organic, you're not going to get any resveratrol. Right, because it activates in the skin when the grape is stressed, as you said about the astaxanthin. Same thing with the lobsters and the shrimp and the crab. So unless you're using organic grape skins, which cost-wise very prohibitive, it's not going to do any good.
Well, to further on that as well, with organic, grape skins and organic grapes in general, most of that crop is already dedicated. So even if you said to yourself, well, then I'll go get it from organic grapes, good luck finding them. Almost 100% dedicated to the food industry. So they're usually sold as whole grapes. They're not, just sold as, they're not destroyed and sold as skins or for any other reason. So they're almost impossible to find, in any other product except for a whole food. So it's just not attainable. So we found what I think is besides for getting it from organic grapes and eating a whole heck of a lot of them to get to that point, I think it's the best source, that is available to anyone because of its origin. This particular manufacturer is in Italy. So they have
even better.
So they have the utmost quality, control, and a very good production method. So, I feel from just about every standpoint that this is the pinnacle material that's in the market.
What made you decide upon a 300 milligram dose?
Sure. So a lot of the, and you're absolutely right. A lot of the resveratrol doses, do range from 50, 100, 200 milligrams. We wanted to give a dose to somebody that they would only have to take once a day. Because usually the lower doses, you do have to take it more than once a day, or it's suggested as so. So we wanted to give somebody a good, powerful dose, milligrams once daily. It's all that's needed, especially with this particular material that's 98% active. And most of the clinical data the past 4 or 5 years about resveratrol higher doses. So, whenever we launch a product, our mentality is always to have a strength that is going to be able to achieve what people are looking for the product to do. So we don't do a whole lot of, that's I like to call it, a speckle lens, which is, a little this, a little that. We do, very potent, very direct style of products that, give somebody, if they're looking for resveratrol, we want to give them the dose and the potency that is going to provide nutritional benefit. And that's why we stuck with the 300 milligram strength, which, I think is more than enough, if somebody's looking for, to optimize their cardiovascular health in any way, that will certainly, give them enough gas in the engine.
Okay. Now, one of my other favorite ingredients is grapeseed extract, but an alternative to grapeseed extract is pycnogenol from pine bark.
Yes.
And now, so your pycnogenol formula, we also are carrying here. Nice dose, 100 milligrams. Benefits and options. What made you decide this particular type of pycnogenol, and what are you seeing benefit-wise with this?
Sure. So to give you a brief history of pycnogenol, I've been a big supporter of pycnogenol for a long time. And how it really got started, there was a German scientist, this goes back in the 1960s, that started doing some research with pine bark extract and trying to, isolate the phenols and, basically, starting to gather some of the benefits, of these phenolic compounds that are found within this tree bark, and see, what kind of a range of benefit it would provide for the human body. So fast forward a little bit. It started about 40 years ago, give or take now. And when it started, pycnogenol, and which is just a brand name for a specific pine bark extract that grows out of, it's called the Les Gascons forest. I'll probably butcher that a little bit, but it's a forest that's in southwestern France that is a preserved forest. There's no pesticides, herbicides, or any other type of foreign matter allowed in this forest. And this particular pine that grows there is known to yield some of the highest quality bark that is across the globe.
Let me ask you, Matt, is that the maritime pine?
That's correct.
Okay,
yeah, it's the French maritime pine. So this particular part of the world, with this preserved forest, unlike other pine, which, maybe in the United States or any other country for that matter, the quality of the bark is not at the same level as this particular forest is. So this forest was used, and still is used as the sole dedicated source of this pine bark. Now, when pycnogenol started, because the first benefits they originally looked at were for blood flow, and more specifically, deep vein thrombosis. which deep vein thrombosis, for anybody who's not familiar with it, is clotting. Primarily happens in the legs for either the elderly or people that have poor circulatory blood flow. Now, if that clot breaks up and then moves to a more, a vital organ such as the lungs, it can cause a pulmonary embolism or it basically a very serious condition that would require medical intervention almost immediately. So with that, they had started this pine bark and were debating, I guess, on bringing it out as and I still actually I believe in certain parts of the world, I don't know if it's Switzerland or if it's France, but it's considered a pharmaceutical because of the health benefits that they had originally sought out for the product.
Right.
But obviously, being an all-natural product, they saw the future and said, because of the regulatory standards going from country to country to country, why don't we just have it as a dietary supplement? So they did that, and they've been focusing their research on that, since that point. Now, to give you an idea of what really makes pycnogenol special, obviously, it's benefits for circulatory health and any related condition from that are well proven. And when I say well proven, I mean more than 160 clinical trials now studied on about 13,000 volunteers over the past 40 years. So it is probably the most clinically studied branded nutraceutical ingredient in the world. Now, obviously, I say branded because items like vitamin C, vitamin D, et cetera, as a whole are probably going to have more clinical trials than pycnogenol. But as a single entity ingredient that is a specialized ingredient, I have not seen any company put more money where their mouth is when it comes to the clinical backing, clinical documentation, safety data, and production of the product to make sure that it is of the very highest caliber and quality. So pycnogenol has been studied for everything from circulatory health to eye health, brain health, women's health, dealing with PMS. It's also been now studied for different, I guess you could call them mental health conditions such as attention deficit disorder and hyperactivity.
Weren't there also a lot of you mentioned women's health? PCOS, I think, is also something.
It is
polycystic ovarian syndrome, right?
Which PCOS is something that affects millions of women across the globe,
right?
And it's polycystic ovary, which could affect things such as difficulty to get pregnant, difficulty to keep a pregnancy, and can lead, of course, to surgery with the ovaries, removal of the ovaries. Which is very serious, for families, and of course, even more so for women, because of the health implications because of that. So PCOS has, has been critical in finding, different supplements as well as nutritional, nutritional products or healthy foods to try to combat that. And it's quite difficult. So I was pleased, of course, whenever I read the study on PCOS and pycnogenol.
What was the dosage? Do you know in that study?
I have to remember off the top of my head. It may have been 60 milligrams. Most of the, amazingly, most of the dosages for women are actually lower, which is nice. We have pycnogenol in a 30, 60. Or I'm sorry, in a 30 milligram, 100 milligram, and 150 milligram strength. The clinical trials.
Folks, we're going to move into our 12 o'clock hour here with Dr. Len Bransowitz. So if you want to catch the rest of that video, it'll be on line at both the World of Wellness Facebook and YouTube channels. But we need to cut in now and get Dr. Len going. You don't want to miss that. We'll be up in a minute or two.